December 1968. Da Nang, Vietnam. Bob Hope was in the middle of his Christmas monologue, the one about Nixon and golf that always killed, when a nurse appeared at the edge of the stage. She wasn't supposed to be there. Nobody interrupted a Bob Hope show. Not generals, not colonels, not even incoming fire. But this nurse was waving, urgent, desperate. What she whispered in Bob's ear would be kept secret for 47 years. 3 words, Ward C, urgent. But those 3 words were just the beginning. What the blind soldier in Ward C would say to Bob Hope, 8 words that would haunt him until the day he died. That secret was still waiting in bed 4. Bob Hope had performed for 11 million soldiers across 26 years. He wasn't the kind of man who stopped mid-show. He wasn't the kind of man who broke his routine. He had never walked off stage before the final bow, until that night. But before we understand what happened in that hospital room, we need to go back 46 days, to Birmingham, Alabama, population 312,847, to a mother named Loretta Davis, who had no idea she was about to receive the worst phone call of her life. Marcus Davis was 23 years old when he shipped out 215 pounds of Birmingham muscle, quarterback. The kid who could throw 60 yards blindfolded, a phrase that would become a cruel prophecy. Loretta Davis raised Marcus alone. His father left when Marcus was 6. She worked double shifts at the textile mill, 12 hours, 6 days a week. Her hands were raw by Thursday, bleeding by Saturday. No complaints, no help, not a single day off in 17 years. She never bought herself a new dress. Marcus never forgot that. What Loretta didn't know was that her son would never see her face again. What she didn't know was that a stranger would pay off her mortgage. What she didn't know was that her sacrifice would echo through decades in ways she couldn't imagine. He enlisted because the Army offered $287 a month, enough to let her stop working double shifts, enough to give her hands a chance to heal. "I'll be back before you know it, Mama," he said at the bus station. "Save me some of that pecan pie." He didn't know those would be the last words he'd ever see her face when he spoke. November 3, 1968. Firebase Delta. The shrapnel came from a mortar round 14 feet away. Marcus didn't hear it coming. Nobody heard it coming. One moment he was writing a letter to his fiancée Sarah. The next moment there was only darkness and a pain so complete it had no edges. When Marcus woke up 3 days later, he tried to open his eyes but saw nothing. The bandages were thick and white and permanent. "I understand, sir," Marcus said to the doctor. His voice didn't shake. His hands didn't tremble. He had 46 days to learn how to be brave in the dark. What Marcus didn't know was that his 46-day wait was about to end, and that the man he'd been waiting for would carry their meeting like a wound for the rest of his life. Ward C was where they sent the ones who wouldn't recover. Nurse Patricia Holloway had worked there for 14 months. She had watched 847 soldiers die. Patty had a rule: don't get attached, don't learn their middle names. She never broke that rule, never made exceptions. But on November 4, 1968, something changed. The day Marcus Davis arrived with no eyes and a smile. What Patty didn't know was that smile cost Marcus everything, but he smiled anyway. For the nurses, for the other soldiers who needed someone to prove that darkness wasn't the end. For 46 days Marcus asked the same question: "Is Bob Hope coming?" The other nurses told him the truth. "Bob Hope doesn't do private visits. You're nobody special. No sugarcoating." But Patty couldn't say those words. "He'll come," she said. "I'll make sure of it." What Patty didn't know was that this promise would change the course of her life. December 19th, 19 hours 15,000 soldiers packed together on a helicopter landing pad. Bob Hope walked out to applause that sounded like thunder. He was 65 years old. His heart had started doing something irregular. This was his 26th Christmas in a combat zone. "Well, here I am in Da Nang. I asked the pilot what the weather would be like and he said, mostly cloudy with a chance of incoming." The laughter rolled across 15,000 men remembering what joy felt like. Bob was 17 minutes into his set when Patty appeared. His timing faltered for half a beat. Bob Hope didn't falter. He finished the Nixon joke, got his laugh, then held up one finger. "Hold that thought, fellas." He walked to the edge of the stage. Patty leaned up. Her voice was barely audible. "Ward C, there's a soldier. He's been asking for you for 46 days. He's blind, please." Bob's face didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. What Bob didn't know was that the next 23 minutes would change the way he saw his entire 50-year career. "Take me to him." What happened next wasn't captured by any camera. Bob followed Nurse Patty through corridors that grew darker with each turn. The smell changed. Antiseptic mixed with something else. The smell of young men trying not to die. "Bed 4, Patty said quietly. His name is Marcus. Bob stopped walking. How long does he have? Patty's eyes filled. She didn't answer. Bob took a breath. Then he walked into Ward C. Marcus Davis was sitting up in bed. His face was turned toward the door, though he couldn't see it. White bandages covered his eyes. He was smiling. Mr. Hope. Marcus's head tilted. Fancy shoes. Nobody here has fancy shoes. Bob laughed. It came out wrong. You got good ears, son. Had to develop them. Bob pulled up a chair. He sat down close enough to smell the hospital soap on Marcus's skin. I hear you've been asking for me. 46 days, Marcus said. Marcus's smile faltered. Then it came back. Can I tell you something, Mr. Hope? I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm afraid of forgetting. Faces, colors, the way my mother looks when she's happy. Every day the images fade, and I know someday I won't remember what a human face looks like. Bob didn't say anything. He was unable to speak. That's why I wanted to meet you. I grew up watching you. Your face is one of the ones I don't want to forget. Marcus, can I ask you a favor? The last one I'll ever ask. Bob's voice was hoarse. Anything. Marcus reached out. Slowly. His fingers trembled. Can I touch your face? The room went still. Bob's eyes moved to Nurse Patty. She nodded once. Of course. Bob whispered. Of course you can. Marcus's fingers found Bob's chin first, then his cheeks, the lines around his eyes, his forehead. His fingers moved like he was reading Braille, like he was memorizing a story written in wrinkles and stubble. The orderly who was mopping the floor stopped. He didn't know why he stopped. He just knew he had to watch. The nurse checking IVs put down her clipboard. Her hand went to her mouth, frozen, not moving, not breathing. Colonel Hayes, the man who ran the hospital, the man who had served 3 tours without shedding a tear, walked past the doorway, paused and looked away. His jaw was tight, his eyes were wet. Sergeant Major Williams stood in the hall. Not when his brother died, not when his son was born, not once in 27 years, but when he saw that blind kid's fingers moving across Bob Hope's face, something broke inside him that would never fully heal. And then there was everyone else. Soldiers in wheelchairs, soldiers who shouldn't have been out of bed. They gathered in the hallway. 31 soldiers. Not a sound. Every single one. You're smiling, Marcus said. I can feel it. I am. Bob's voice cracked. Good, Marcus whispered. I wanted to see a smile one more time, before I forgot what they look like. 8 words. The 8 words that would stay with Bob Hope until his last breath. Bob's shoulders shook. The tears came without sound. You're crying, Marcus said. I can feel it. The wet. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Not for this. Not here. Not ever. Marcus's voice was steady. Crying means you still have hope, Mr. Hope. Bob didn't wipe his eyes. He stayed. No pulling away. No pretending to be strong. Can I tell you something, kid? I've made 11 million soldiers laugh. But right now, in this room, this is the first time in years I haven't been performing. This is the first time I'm just here. That's all I wanted, Marcus whispered. Just you. Here. Human. When Bob emerged from Ward C, his face was composed. The mask was back in place. But Patty saw his hands. They were shaking. The same hands that had held microphones steady through mortar fire.
Cancel my next 3 shows, Bob said.
His voice was flat, final. Sir, there are thousands of soldiers. I know how many there are. Bob turned to face her. His eyes were red. I'm not leaving until I've visited every soldier in Ward C. Every single one. It took until 4 a.m. Bob visited 31 soldiers. He held 31 hands. He heard 31 stories. And when it was over, Bob walked to the end of the hallway, sat on the floor, his back against the wall, and cried. Not the quiet tears from Marcus's room. These were different, shoulders shaking, breath coming in ragged gasps, 26 years of war pouring out onto cold linoleum. Patty watched from the nurse's station. She didn't approach. Some grief is too private. When Bob finally stood up, he walked to Patty's desk. His eyes were swollen. Do you have paper? He wrote 31 letters that night, one for every mother. Your son is brave. Your son made me believe in something I'd forgotten. His hand cramped after the 15th letter. He kept writing. 3 weeks later, Loretta Davis received a letter. No return address. Inside, a check, her mortgage, paid in full, and a note, your son saved me. A friend. She never knew who sent it. Every December 19th for 17 years, Bob Hope would disappear for a few hours. His staff learned not to ask questions. His wife Dolores knew. She was the only one. Bob would fly to Birmingham. No cameras, no press. Just a man in a rental car pulling up to a small house where a blind schoolteacher lived.
Mr. Hope? That you? How'd you know, kid? You still got fancy shoes. They would have lunch. They didn't talk about Ward C directly. They talked about Marcus's students, the blind children he taught at Birmingham Elementary, about the letters Marcus received from former students who became doctors, lawyers, teachers themselves. "You changed their lives," Bob would say. "You changed mine first," Marcus would answer. This went on for 17 years, until Marcus's heart gave out in 1989. He was 43 years old. The doctors said it was a congenital defect, something that had been waiting inside him since birth. Bob Hope attended the funeral, sat in the back row, told no one who he was, just another mourner whose life Marcus had touched.
In 2015, Patricia Holloway was 76 years old, dying of cancer, living in a hospice in San Diego with nothing left to lose, and a secret that had been burning inside her for 47 years. A PBS documentary crew came to interview her about her time as a war nurse. They expected stories about trauma. They got something else. "There's something I need to tell you," Patty said, her voice thin but steady, "something I couldn't say while they were alive." The camera kept rolling. What people don't know is what Bob Hope did after he left that room, after Marcus touched his face. She paused, wiped her eyes. He walked to the end of the hallway, sat on the floor, and cried for 20 minutes. The man who made America laugh for 50 years, shoulders shaking, like something inside him broke. She paused again. The camera crew was motionless. But that's not the secret. The secret is what happened next. Bob came back to my desk, red eyes, shaking hands, and he said, "Cancel my next 3 shows. I'm not leaving until I've visited every soldier in Ward C." It took until 4 a.m. 31 soldiers, 31 letters to 31 mothers, by hand. Nobody knew, until now. The documentary aired 6 months after Patty died. It was watched by 4.7 million people. In 2016, Darnell Davis was cleaning out his father's house. His mother, Sarah, who had come back, who had married Marcus after all in 1974, had passed away the year before. What Darnell didn't know was that a shoebox in his father's closet was about to answer questions the family had been asking for 48 years. In the closet, behind boxes of old records, he found it. Inside, 17 letters, all from Bob Hope, all unopened. Dad never opened them? He couldn't, his aunt said. He was blind, and he refused to let anyone else read them. He said they were private, between him and Bob. Darnell held the first envelope, December 20, 1968. The postmark was 48 years old. He opened it. "Dear Marcus, last night you asked to touch my face. You said you wanted to see a smile one more time, but here's what you don't know. You're the one who made me smile. For the first time in months I wasn't performing. I was just there, with you, human. I've made millions of people laugh, but you taught me something I forgot. Sometimes presence is enough. Sometimes just showing up is the whole show. Your friend Bob." Darnell read all 17 letters that night. Same message, different words, year after year. Bob Hope thanking a blind soldier for teaching him how to see. The last letter, December 1988. "You taught me that hope isn't a punchline, it's a choice, every single day." Today, at the Birmingham VA hospital, there's a tradition. Every December 19th, volunteers visit every patient in the long-term care ward. They don't perform. They just sit, hold hands, listen. It's called the Marcus Davis Hour. Bob Hope made 11 million soldiers laugh, but on December 19, 1968, he did something harder. He stopped being a performer, and he started being a person. A blind soldier asked to touch his face, not for a joke, just to remember what a smile felt like. And Bob Hope did the only thing he could. He sat down, he stayed, and he let himself be seen. For 47 years nobody knew what happened in Ward C. Now you do. Marcus Davis's tombstone reads, "He saw more than most." 1945-1989. Bob Hope's letters were donated to the Smithsonian in 2019. More people stopped to read them than to look at his trophies. They're not looking for comedy. They're looking for hope. And 47 years later, they still find it. Disclaimer. This content is completely fictional entertainment inspired by the life and legacy of Bob Hope. All stories, dialogues, characters, and events are creative fiction and should not be taken as factual biography.